My guest today on Crested Butte is Home is Bart Laemmel, and Bart is a guy who is self-described as a forensic carpenter, and that means that he likes to get nasty. He likes to get down there in the crawl space and find the moisture and find the mold and find out why that house is so drafty. So he gets into the nasty stuff and he makes it better. I thought this is a really interesting conversation. I haven't thought about some of the things that we talked about. You know, what does it mean if you take a mining cabin from the late 1800s in Crested Butte and put a lot of money into it? What does that do to the moisture and the temperature of that house? So I thought it was really interesting, and I hope you do too. As always, please follow the show on Apple Podcasts and leave a review if you can. And you can also always find me on Facebook at Crested Butte is Home, or Instagram at Crested Butte is Home, or my website, CrestedButteRealEstateAgent.com. Enjoy the show. Okay, today we have Bart Laemmel, and Bart, tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from and just you in general.
All right. Well, I grew up in just outside New York City, about 30 miles up the Hudson from the city. Mm-hmm. And it was a great place to grow up and a better place to leave. And it was I couldn't get out of there fast enough and moved to Colorado. I moved here in 1988 to go to college at Western State.
Wow. And
I did graduate as well from Western.
How'd you find Western?
I actually kind of lucked out. Our principals, our vice principal of our school, his son ended up coming to Western, and he was about 3 years older than me. Uh-huh. And basically when I was back in New York, I ski raced, and really from sixth grade on, I came out here in sixth grade, and I was like, that's it, I'm moving to Colorado. Like, that was it.
You came to Crested Butte, actually, or
not Crested Butte, Aspen, and Denver, and just Colorado in general. And I was like, that's it. Like, that's where I'm moving. So, like, from sixth grade on, that was it. And then being a ski racer and all that. So, started looking into colleges out here, and, it was, my parents were like, yeah, you're going to college,
Right.
That wasn't really a choice. And so I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to college, then I'm going to, I'm going to go to Colorado, and I applied to like everywhere under the sun out here. Yeah. And then I came out to visit, and that's a whole nother situation when you're like you're in Greeley.
Right.
You're like, what?
Like, this isn't Colorado.
Yeah, you're like, this is Colorado? I was like, what are you talking about? And then going to like Boulder, and just, the size of Boulder. I was in a smaller high school. And so once literally we got out of the car in Gunnison, and it was our last visit, and both my dad and I were like, oh yeah.
Yeah, this is what I'm looking for.
Yeah, this is exactly what I was looking for.
Nice.
I hadn't even seen Crested Butte yet, nothing.
Right.
And I just knew the ski area was there. And so, it was like, it was a perfect fit. As far as the school went, and then pretty much been here ever since. I did a little 4-year stint down in Denver and Fort Collins after living here for about 10 years. Yeah, and I'd sold snowboard shop at that time and to my partners, and I was like, all right, I got to experience something else for a little bit. Yeah. But once the little my daughter got to a point where we were like, yeah, we got to get her into school. She wasn't going to school in North Denver.
Right.
So,
wanted to come back here.
Yeah. So that was like January of 2005. Yeah. Back here. So
nice. Mm-hmm. So I know you've done a bunch of adventures. Let's talk about one real quick before we get to business.
All right.
Which one? What do you want to?
Let's see. I guess we were just talking about this off air, before, we've done, you kind of come out here and into this big world. Yeah. I was 17 years old when I started college. So, right. It's like let loose on the world. And at that time in the late 80s, this valley was still pretty. It was still pretty feral,
Yeah.
I mean, there was you could get away with a lot.
It's a little more raw.
Yeah, it was a little more raw, a little more like out there, and we did, we pushed some envelopes.
Yeah.
As, in our personal little worlds, and especially at that age. I mean, literally my first weekend at school, there's some cliffs you can see from Gunnison to west called Palisade Cliffs.
Sure.
And we were like, dude, we want to go hike over there. Right? No idea what we're getting ourselves into, right? We're like, yeah, we're gonna go hike over there. So we drive until we hit a river.
Yeah.
We drive probably on some rancher's property.
Right,
Totally illegally. And we hike across the river, and start hiking around up on the cliffs,
Right.
And we hike up, we hike around, we get up top, and one of our friends, friend at the time, I didn't know the kid for 3 days.
Right.
This big football player dude. He walks towards the edge of the cliffs ahead of us.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm just going to go check it out. And we were like, all right, cool, man. So we're sitting up there, and we were like, let's roll. Let's get out of here. So we yell, Dan, we're heading out. And we thought we heard him say, oh, okay, and we hike around. And when you hike around those cliffs, you see down through this valley in the middle.
Yeah.
And Dan was laying on the ground at the base of the cliffs. And I don't think I've covered that much vertical in my whole life.
Yeah.
Skiing or anything. Mountain biking that fast.
Yeah.
I was the first one to get to him. And compound fractures of both legs, sage sticking out of them, everything.
Geez.
So that was my introduction.
But he
lived.
Okay.
Yeah.
But he fell off.
He fell off he tried to climb the front. And the Palisades, if you know the cliffs, it's
horrible rock. Otherwise,
you're not climbing.
Otherwise, everyone would be climbing.
Everybody would be climbing. Exactly. It's basically like sand with a bunch of rocks stuck in it. And so he decided he wanted to climb down the face. Who knows? This is just the ignorance of who we were at the time, right? We're like, sweet, let's go.
College freshman, anywhere really. But
and he basically and he lived. I never saw a kid again, but I heard through the grapevine. He lived, and it's kind of messed up, and physically a little bit, but obviously he wasn't playing football anymore, and never saw him back at school. But that was
wow.
So that's kind of that's
crazy stuff.
Kind of the introduction to our. And then years later, right? I was a raft guide, and well, I shouldn't say years. A couple years later, I was a raft guide, and it was like, these things turn into, it was fun because we lived, right? And so you raft by there, and you got a story to tell.
Right, yeah.
Right?
That's all about the stories we can tell.
Yeah.
It's life.
It's a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
To some people who come out here and visit, a little bit. Like, hey, man, this is the wilderness.
Yeah, not New York anymore, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. You're not in a little controlled environment, so that was kind of my introduction to out here. So, it was interesting.
Right off the bat.
Yeah.
Crazy. All right, well, let's switch topics. So you call yourself a forensic carpenter. So what's a forensic carpenter?
Well, this is a self-imposed title after a while because in my line of work, a lot of people, what we call ourselves is building scientists. And I didn't feel like I didn't really fit that completely because I'm not as much of a data information geek as far as that. Everything to me is very tactile in my world. I was an art major in college, and so everything's very visual, tactile, and in my hands. And so over the years, from remodeling buildings and then doing, becoming an investigator of buildings, an energy auditor, involved with green building programs, things like that, and getting involved with the building science community. Basically worked myself into this kind of this expert in building failure. And so the call I never get is, hey Bart, I got this great house. It's comfortable all the time. Does utility bills are low. It's got great indoor air quality. Hey, you want to come check it out? I just don't get that call. I mean, I get the call because hey, it's messed up. Please come find out why it's messed up.
And when you say messed up, it's what are some of the...
Oh, man. I mean, mainly we get called out. Mainly it's either a structural or a moisture issue.
Yeah.
Indoor air quality issues due to moisture issues. So, you might have mold issues, rot.
Yeah.
We have huge energy issues in homes. People are like, hey, I just got a $600, gas bill or electric bill, and I can't afford that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's not sustainable, right? And so we get called out to figure out those things. Now, I never get the call. Nobody ever calls me in the middle of the night and says, "Hey, my house is leaking air."
Right. It's not an emergency, but it's
not an emergency, But they kind of know something's up. I mean, most of the time, I get the call because there's water running in the house somewhere. Yeah. That's the typical, the canary, you might say, in the coal mine.
Right.
Right. So yeah, just anything from. And they're all related, right? I mean, building as a system is really what we produce in. What's up, Pretty Tat? That's what we try to produce, is a building as a system. So if we have, you come out to fix a crawl space. Like if I fix your crawl space up, I'm taking care of a moisture issue,
right?
Taking care of an energy issue, taking care of an indoor air quality issue. Right, comfort issue, because I'm going to make your floors warmer. Right. So it's like I'm dealing with all those things. That's a system, right? So building as a system. How do we make it better overall?
Yeah. So how'd you get into this? I assume you just started on a crew somewhere as the grunt, moving lumber around, and now you're kind of...
Yeah, I started years ago. I started in 1991. Is when I started working for a local guy here. Installing carpet and linoleum. That's how I got going, right?
Yeah.
And he basically hired me because I'm 6'3" and 190 pounds and can carry a lot of carpet.
There you go.
So he's like, "You'll do."
Right.
If you got a weak mind and a strong back, I can teach you how to put in carpet.
Exactly.
So that's where I got started. But then I started building. I was a carpenter for years, and building homes, remodeling homes. The remodeling part was what really got me interested in like the building failure and trying to understand houses better, because it didn't matter. It seemed like no matter what age of house. I mean, I grew up in a 250-year-old colonial in New York, so I kind of understood the whole fact that things break right over time, right? And like our house still has the same front door from when it was built.
Wow.
So, awesome. Think about that, right? So, so I understand that there's a longevity to things, but it seemed to me like I'm running into the same issues no matter whether it's a house, 100 years old, 50 years old, 20 years old, 10 years old. Like these same issues keep coming up. And why, right? So I was a very big why person, and like I said, interested in investigating. So I was always pulling things apart and looking at it and being like, okay, so what is our process here, right?
Right.
And so then once you get trained, so I got trained to be an energy rater through the energy through the EPA and the home energy rater system.
Okay.
HERS scores. And that kind of got me started on the building science part of it and the laws of thermodynamics and how they apply to, you know how it is. You're in high school, right? You're learning about all this scientific stuff. You're like, when am I ever going to use this, right?
Now you do.
Yeah, my whole life is the laws of thermodynamics.
Awesome. Where are you? Where are you learning this stuff? Like, are you going to classes in Denver, or online classes, or just self-taught?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of it's self-taught. I mean, once you understand the principles of kind of like what you're trying to look at, then you start applying that to like everything in your world, right? And but yeah, no, I've got, I mean, you can get certification processes through just about everywhere you go, right? You know, and I always ask people, it's like, what another certification means? Nothing.
Right.
And
some letters.
It's just some letters, man, because, like the Building Performance Institute, certified through them for building analyst, like I mentioned, HERS Rater, Energy Star stuff, mold certs, investigation and worker lead, lead accredited professional. So you kind of pick these things up as you go and kind of start applying them, and they all. But when it all, I mean, it's really kind of funny when it all comes back around to it. When I teach building science and investigation work, and pretty much my first slide usually is, heat goes from more to less. Moisture goes from more to less.
Right.
Air goes from more high pressure to low pressure. Right. Yeah. And water runs downhill. If you know those 4 things, you can do what I do. You
can figure something out.
Yeah, you can look at it, and if you apply that to it, you can figure out the problem. Typically, So gravity works. So
there you go. It's just that simple. 4 rules.
Yep.
So, well, I guess let's just go into some horror stories then, and if you gotta protect the innocent, go ahead and do so. But so let's hear some rough ones.
We've had some over the years. We had a mixed commercial use building that we were working on, and over the last couple of years, and it was kind of it was one of those ones where years ago I found out there was a moisture issue with it, and I was kind of wondering when the day would be that I got called in. Yeah, it was like just a matter of time maybe. And the guy who owns it is an old customer of mine, and he's the new owner, and he called me in. He's like, okay, we got this moisture issue, and like the first thing that happened was I walked in this building, and it's commercial on the first floor. There's 2 offices on the second floor, and then on the third floor there's an apartment. And you walk in, and it smelled like a dead pack of skunks.
This is on the bottom floor?
Yeah, so on the bottom floor there was a grow facility in the bottom floor. And so it wasn't so you take a building that's already got moisture issues.
And you just
historic
added
moisture issues.
A boatload of.
And now we've just added a whole nother thing. And then it was funny because I'm standing there with the guys who were growing, and we're looking at the grow room, and I told them, I was like, you got to ventilate the room,
big
right?
time.
And he goes, it is ventilated, and and we kind of go back and forth. No, it isn't. Yes, it is. It's kind of like Looney Tunes.
Would he have like a bathroom fan?
And so so he goes. There's a makeup air on this wall, and the air blows out on this wall.
Right.
And this is all within the commercial space.
Yeah.
So nothing goes in or outside.
Okay.
Right. So this is all. So it's basically like if you had your bath fan ventilated to your living room.
Okay.
Okay, so let's put it that way, right?
Yeah.
So you're taking a shower and you're pumping that warm, moist air out of the bathroom into your living room.
Somewhere, yeah.
So it's really you're not ventilating the building.
It's like a recirculating fan over your stove. It doesn't really do anything.
And with as much as it smells inside the building, you know why they're not ventilating the outside. Right. Because the neighbors are going to be like, what in God's name? Because then they're going to have to put, carbon filters on and, all that stuff. And they just want to spend the money, right?
Sure.
So you got a room. So you take a building that's got historical moisture issues, and now you've added this to it. So it just pushed it right over the top.
Yeah.
And then once, so you investigate these things, and this isn't the first place I've run into this on, right? I mean, we run into this all the time, and it's not just grow rooms. It's, it's just the way people utilize a building. Right. We've been expert witnesses on a house that got sold. The original owners utilized the house for 5 years. No issues.
Yeah.
The original builders, and they built it, owned it, all that stuff. The new owners come in, and all of a sudden they've got moisture drainback issues from condensation in the roof system. Mm-hmm. And they're gonna now go after the original builder because they didn't disclose it.
Sure.
Right. And so, but it came down to the fact that there was not a wood stove, but a gas stove in the house.
Uh-huh.
The original people never used it.
Oh, wow.
They never turned it on.
And that pumped the
next person loved using it.
Yeah.
And that just completely changed the thermal dynamic of that room. So it changed the heated airflow, the convective loop of warm, moist air. Huh. Right? And then, it sucked more moisture out of the crawl space, which did not have a proper vapor barrier, which is not unusual, especially if you don't. We make a pretty good living putting them in. And that introduced more moisture into the roof system. Bad winter, drain back. right?
So it's condensating on the bottom side of the metal.
Exactly, on the bottom side of the roof deck, and then draining back, will come sink. So, I mean, the unfortunate part about that project was, and this is one of many that's happened, is that I typically get called in when the first repair doesn't work, because obviously the roof's leaking.
Right.
Who are you going to call?
Roofer,
right? But the roofer comes in and he says, yeah, you need a roof, because, when you walk around with a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Right.
So if you're a roofer, that's what you do, right?
Yeah.
So we got to redo the roof. So they did redo the roof, and they did spray foam the roof. They took off the whole roof.
Oh, wow.
Took off the whole deck, spray foamed, and then put it all back together.
But that still wasn't going to fix
Next
it.
winter, again,
thing.
we had the same problem. Because around the can lights, they left huge gaps around the can lights. And so the can light, there was a big 2x2 area that was just
a little bit
insulation again.
Yeah.
All right, just fiberglass.
Sure.
And a big airflow up through that.
Yeah.
And so now they had drain back again at the can lights.
Oh,
so
wow.
nobody went into the crawl space and went, hey,
it's coming.
maybe we should put a vape barrier down.
It's actually coming from here. It's actually being sucked from below.
It's sucked out of the soil.
Wow, that's crazy.
So
that's crazy.
So we run into those. It's that building as a system connecting point A to point B.
Yeah.
Right. And doing stuff, and the unfortunate or fortunate part of like buildings like this other commercial, like another commercial building we did over in another mountain town. I mean, I've never had a building. It was like a late night infomercial. Like it just, but wait, there's more. Like every time you turned around, you were like, you took a board off and you went, oh wow. And you took another board off the building. Oh, geez. It was like
it's even worse than the other one.
Yeah, it was like, oh, well, we better check that area now. And then and it was, basically it came down to like an 8-year building that we were like, we need to strip the whole thing.
Wow.
And the owner's like, what? And I'm like,
yeah.
I was like, it's soaking wet.
Right. What are you gonna do?
Right. Yeah. We're talking a 3-story wall, wet, top to bottom.
Wow.
100% moisture content in the whole wall.
Yeah.
And this is in August.
Right. It should be dry as a bone.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And so we're like, okay, what's going on now? I mean, there was some I have to give credit where credit's due. Method of the madness. They had not done the firewall properly. So I guess they just figured, hey, if it's wet, it can't burn.
Okay.
So
that's one way to think about
it. So yeah, we run into a lot of stuff like that, and I've learned over the years as a consultant, when you find something really cool, to not let the homeowner see you, fist pumping. Dance jig.
This is the coolest ruined building I've ever seen.
This is awesome.
Yeah. All right, well, let's take a quick break. For this show's Crested Butte Real Estate Minute, I thought it would probably be appropriate to talk about home inspections. So when you're thinking about selling your home, one thing that you can do is go ahead and get an inspection before you even list the property, and that way any problems will show up, hopefully, and you can take care of it before it becomes just a giant headache in the middle of a contract. So that's something you might want to consider. And then for the buyers, one thing to keep in mind is what's included in an inspection. For instance, radon typically will not be an inspection item unless you ask for it. So these are all things to think about if you are buying or selling a home in Crested Butte or Gunnison or anywhere for that matter. My name is Frank Kinsella. My website is crestedbutterealestateagent.com. You can find my contact info there, and I am always happy to talk about anything that you would like to talk about with real estate in the Crested Butte and Gunnison area. Back to the show. I gotta guess that Crested Butte's got to be one of the hardest places to build properly. I mean, it is dry and hot in the summer, and yet you got snow sitting on the bottom for 5 months a year. And yes, talk about Crested Butte versus other places and what you got to think about when you're building here.
Oh yeah, no, I mean it's funny to go out into the world and see, and especially talk and and do teachings in other places, and like, this is such a brutal climate.
Yeah.
It's so brutal. Like, and it's funny, it's funny too, because it's like, I mean, one of my things is I go around and we consult on new builds to make sure people do things right.
Right.
I come from a failure background. So
right.
I've done all the bad details.
Yeah.
Like, I honestly have I have framed a house, put in windows with no flashing, sided it.
Right.
No drainage plane, no nothing. And this is before I knew anything. I was just working on a crew, right?
Better.
I have no idea, right? I was like 27 years old, 28 years old on a crew. Just happened to move to Fort Collins, hopped on this crew.
So that's how they're banging them out in Fort Collins.
So that's what I was doing. I was like, there's something not right about this.
Right.
But I don't know. It's the first time I ever framed houses. So I was like, I don't know, Yeah. So, you come from that background where you're like, I mean, I come from, also I worked in Superior for Richmond American Homes, a big home builder.
Yeah.
And at the time we put up 134 houses on our side of the subdivision in 1 year.
Yeah.
Okay, so in 9 months I learned how to screw shit up at an alarming rate.
I bet.
And I was an assistant superintendent. So I'm 28 years old.
Yeah.
And then they wanted to put me in charge. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I don't know what's wrong, but this is wrong.
And this is probably like early 2000s, and it's
this
like
is
everybody's
99, yeah,
okay,
99,
so
2000,
people
right?
are building stuff.
Oh yeah, tech boom.
Yeah,
it's off the hook, right?
Yeah.
And we're up right outside of Boulder, right? So, I mean, we're, to the point where we own Superior.
Right.
Yeah. So we'd call and be like, "Hey, I need a CO." Building department would be like, "Well, did you get an inspection?" Nah, really, I need a CO.
Yeah.
I got to close the house, and they're like, oh, "Okay, well, make sure you get an inspection." Right. So I've been down the road, I've made the mistakes.
Yeah.
Right. And trust me, there's a lot of buildings I'd like to go back to, a lot of knock on their door and just be like, "Sorry,
my bad."
Know. Yeah, didn't know.
Have you discovered that yet?
Yeah, exactly. If you had an issue with, whatever. So when I moved back up here and I started building up here and stuff, I went through an adjustment period where, I would build something, especially up here on the mountain.
Yeah.
Like, you'd build a deck with a railing and you'd be like, "Dude, that is bomber." And you'd come back the next year and it's like the whole railing's gone.
Right.
And
roof slid and just destroyed.
Yeah. You're thinking you're just killing it,
Right.
And it's a brutal climate here. It really is. It's extra special,
Yeah.
And people, and the biggest thing is that, everybody's got a false sense of security on the moisture issues. Like, oh, we don't have mold issues here. We don't have moisture issues.
It's usually 20% humidity, right?
Right. Yeah. But like I said, right, you've got, more to less, right?
Right.
So you take a building and you put 70-degree air in it, right, with 30 to 40% relative humidity, and outside is -20,
right,
with no moisture in it, right, dry air. So you have warm, moist air and cold, dry air. That's a huge delta T,
right,
over that boundary. So basically, you have warm, moist air driving to the outside, and what's it going to do? It's going to condensate on the outside cold surface.
Yeah.
Right? That's what's going to happen, right? Add in a wet crawl space. Add in unvented attic, or unvented, cathedral ceiling, or, so then you start, tongue and groove ceiling, right? How many more holes could you put in a ceiling than tongue and groove, right? Wood boards.
Right.
So just think of any time you put two pieces of wood or two pieces of material where they butt together, there's a chance for an air leak.
Oh, yeah.
So, tongue and groove ceiling, right? Or let's even go better. Barnwood ceiling. So you don't even have a tongue and groove, right? Okay, so
with wormholes and all the cool
and all that
stuff,
and then no air barrier behind it, right? Well, I put up the plastic, is what most people say, right? It's like, well, okay, plastic is a vapor barrier,
right?
It is not an air barrier. Did you seal every seam, and did you seal it at the edges?
Now we stapled it up a little bit, and some of it fell off in the process, but we figured it was okay,
right? Not a big deal. So So yeah, it's like, so building here, the problem is we have such extreme, like you were saying, like summer, and wood is amazing, right? It's like you can get wood, if you let it have a drying cycle, you can get it wet and let it dry out, and let it dry out. It will expand and go back to exactly where it was.
Yeah.
It's an amazing thing, but you gotta let it dry out.
Uh-huh.
And here we do have big drying potentials during the summer, right? So we have that. But sometimes we build in a way where it's all of a sudden not able to be dry, right? You put something in the way, right? On the outside, you might put an insulation on the outside that has a plastic sheathing on it.
Yeah.
Right? That's a vapor barrier on the outside. So now we've cut off that vapor potential, that vapor drying potential to the outside. So if you get water in that wall, now it doesn't have anywhere to go, right? It can dry on the inside, maybe. Who knows?
A little bit.
Maybe a little bit. Who knows, right? Depending on the situation. So yeah, building around here, building up at this altitude and all that stuff. And one thing that in the thing I've been wrong about, I've failed more on and then over the years, is if I see something and I see it's wrong, and in my brain I'll go, in so many years I'll be working on that. I'll be fixing that. And pretty much every time I'm about halfway, I'm double. So if I say, it'll be 10 years, it's 5.
Really?
Yeah, it tells you too sweet, really, how quickly. And we're building more and more. The problem is that you add that together with the fact that we're building more and more moisture sensitive. Because we're using, and I have no problem with these materials, but we're using OSB, orientated strand board. Was wood. Okay, at one time it was wood. It was wood. All right, it is not wood anymore. It's chips of stuff that have been compressed, that have been. You have glues and you have all this stuff, and it's compressed and it's heated and it's cooked to make it. So you've done half the work for the mold, right? And it doesn't allow moisture to go through it as easily as plywood. Right? And it doesn't disperse moisture, right? Because at least with plywood, you have sheets of continuous fiber, right? So if that gets wet, it can wick, right? And it can spread out, and if it spreads out, it can dry, right? With orientated strand board, you don't have that continuation of fiber.
It's just stuck in a
so
chip
it's stuck,
of wood.
right? It's a sponge, right? It's mold candy, really, is what it is. So like you're building out of those types of things. You're building out of other engineered materials, glue lambs, TJIs, rim joist material that's basically thick OSB. So we're building more and more and more out of engineered material, which has been cooked and processed and all that stuff. So it's just easier. It's just more moisture sensitive. I have no problem with these products. Like, I really don't.
They're
great.
Straight and strong. And
straight, strong. You can build them out of small trees, so we can regenerate those trees quicker and build them out of small trees, right? You need a big freaking tree to make plywood.
Yeah.
Like, to make those, to make the, to strip that down.
Yeah.
So, like, when you look at that process, it's awesome, but it is what it is. Right. You have to understand the product, and between code, the reality of it is between code, the manufacturers, and just the speed at which we're producing things, it's not easy to be a carpenter anymore. Like there's almost no such thing as like, I'm just a carpenter. Or I'm just an electrician, or I'm just a tinner, or I'm just an insulator, or it's too complicated, man. I mean, the options you have, the amount of options you have to put together a building, and like sticky shit A works great with, substrate B, and substrate B works great with substrate, or C works great with substrate B, but sticky shit A don't stick to substrate C.
Right.
And so you need to know like all these ASTM ratings and whether they work together. I mean, it goes on and on.
And there's not a lot of training in it either. It's like you just, it's almost always, you just move the squid over there, grunt, and then next thing you know, you're in charge, build the wall.
Exactly. Well, and I tell the manufacturers all the time when I talk to them, I go, listen, man, you can ship the product a hell of a lot faster than you can ship the knowledge on how to use it. Because if they're already using product A not properly, let's say they're not using Tyvek properly, right, and they're not flashing that properly to their penetrations, right? windows. All right, a window is a hole in an otherwise good wall system.
Yeah.
Okay, so we call them water injection systems. That's what we call a window. And so if you take that product, they're not using that right. Okay, now let's give them zip board, zip panel, which has the Tyvek integrated into the actual plywood or the OSB, right? If they're not already using the one product right, what makes you think they're going to use this product right?
Right.
And what is the level of elevated failure if this other product fails comparatively to the Tyvek? Right? I don't know.
Right.
But you know what I'm saying. So the education on how, and especially up here, like I said, up here it happens fast. Like when something fails, it fails right away. Typically it doesn't take a long time. The ones that take a long time are the ones that were built. The ones that we really see now that were built long ago because they were built out of real material. Right, they were built out of real wood.
Yeah.
Or you had lath and plaster, right? Concrete, is awesome stuff. Or you built, and there was so much air leaking through the thing, right?
Just dries it right out.
Yeah, we were drying all year long because you had to turn on the thermostat or run a wood stove or a coal stove, right? So you're just drying, you're just freeze drying, right? The house at that point, right? And that's just to stay comfortable, right?
Yeah.
So it didn't matter that there wasn't a vapor barrier in the crawl space, right?
Right.
Now take that same building, drill a bunch of holes in it, inject a bunch of cellulose into the walls.
Right. Fix it all up.
Right? So you've changed, so you're fixing it up, right? But now you've said, okay, great. We're going to have the same building that gets wet at the same rate from whether interior sources or exterior sources. And we're going to not do what? We're not going to turn on the energy.
Right.
Right? So we're not going to run the wood stove. We're not going to turn on the furnace.
It's a nice tight house.
Right? It's a nice tight house. Now we're going to take that, that historical house and rot it to the ground in a matter of years.
Wow.
Right? Because
you never would have thought that. You were just happy that you've got a beautiful house now.
Yeah, right? We're upgrading the house.
Either.
So when it comes down to the hysterical societies, I get some of the stuff they get concerned about. Some of it I don't.
Yeah.
Some they miss the boat on some stuff. They do really great on other stuff. But when it comes down to the building sites, now the historical society they're coming around. Like they really are. They're really getting the whole need to integrate and save their buildings in a certain way.
Yeah.
And that, that's the way it goes. But yeah, man, I drive around here all the time just taking pictures of job security. So, it's fun. I've literally taken a picture of a detail and been like, oh, that's messed up. Taking a picture of it and like 6 years later been called to the house and open up my phone and been like, or open up my files and they're like, yep, there it is. And they're like, they look at you like that's creepy.
Like
you need to go now.
I didn't want to know that really.
Yeah, I didn't know. I was like, there's your problem right there.
Let's start wrapping it up a little bit. So you do all this remodeling. It's hard, nasty work getting in these crawl spaces and doing all this stuff. Why not just start from scratch and build something right and call it a day?
I'd love to. To tell you the truth, I made a decision a long time ago though that. I would only build if people really wanted to drink my Kool-Aid. So it would really take somebody who wanted to build. Basically, I would guess right now if I had to put a standard on it, it would be a passive house standard. The German. Well, it's the American version of the passive house, German passive house system, which I think is the American version is much better because we're American. But so that's that, and I really haven't. I've entertained the thought of building for certain people, but when we really get into the weeds, and I have no problem. I love design, and unfortunately, I'm not a rustic person. I love my modern boxes, and around here, not many people want that. So
that's changing.
It's changing. It's coming around.
It's changing.
Yeah, it is coming around.
Crested Butte is home for you. Why do you choose to make Crested Butte your home?
Oh man, well, Crested Butte, I will admit, people always say you get used to having 8 months of winter, and I was like, no, you get over it. And my daughter will graduate in 2 years, and I will be moving on.
You will.
Yep. And I've loved this place. At that point in time, I've been here and involved in the community for 32 years.
Yeah.
In this valley, and it will be time to go experience something else for a while. You know, it's always here. I can always come back.
Yeah.
And maybe I will. Maybe I'll go out in the world and be like, "This is a crazy ass place." I'm coming back.
Back to the bubble.
Yeah, back to the bubble, back to the Shire, and you know, but it's going to be time to move on. So I've already told my daughter, I was like, day of graduation, truck or the motorcycle or whatever I'm driving's packed, and I'll hug you. And I'm out.
Hope you got a place for your stuff.
Yeah, I hope you got a place for your stuff to go, and you can have anything of mine, because if it ain't fitting in the truck, it ain't coming with me.
There you go.
But I love this place. I really do. There's certain things about it that are just absolutely phenomenal. You know, as far as a place to raise a kid. You can't beat it, and the friends I have here, and you know, I mean, it's really funny to just the other day, like somebody said, "Remember 20 years ago?" and blah blah, and I looked at him, I waved my hand, I go, "Dude, that was 30 years ago."
Oh, yeah, totally.
Like we got to start talking in the 30s now, and they're like, they got to stop, and they were like, "Wow, all right, yeah, you're right, man. That was like 1990." You know, like, we're coming up on the 30 years, man. And, you know, so it's been, I love it. I think this is an amazing place. It's changed. It's definitely changed a lot. And, but at the same time, when I go to like Aspen, or I go to, you know, Vale area, or, you know, something like that, I come back and I go, this ain't so bad.
This is pretty good.
It's pretty damn good. Yeah.
Totally. So someone's been listening and they're like, "Oh man, I got moisture in my house." Where can they find out more about you? And
well, we have B2 Building Science is the company name. You can get us on we're a website, b2buildingscience.com. I have a Instagram feed, which is called Bull Diggy. When I signed up for it, it was basically just to follow my daughter, and I didn't realize that I'd get into it.
Cool.
So I have my own Bart Laemmel at Facebook. So that there, and we do a bunch of forensic carpentry posts.
Yep, they're fun. And that's Laemmel, correct?
Yep, Laemmel, and Bull Diggy, so BULLDIGGY. Cool. On the Instagram. And you know, we're starting to get into it, and I also do I just started a blog.
Nice.
I've had a book in mind for years and years and years, and I realized that due to my 30 plus odd years in the service industry, I don't do anything or have any motivation to get anything done unless somebody is forcing me to do it.
Yeah.
So I decided I'd start a blog, and then if people signed up for the blog, I would write it. And it's not a polished book on the blog. It's just basically I'm using it to get the damn thing out of my head.
And what's the URL?
It's called crookedarrow28.com.
There's probably a story there, but we're running out of time.
Yep. There's a lot of stories there.
So one last question. Who else should I interview?
Oh, man. Let's see. Who else should you interview? You know who always fascinates me? Brian Holly. Yeah. Always fascinates me.
How so?
Well, I think he's one of the builders. Like if I was going to do it from a builder standpoint, there's a few guys that intrigue me, who want to know. They're always, they're busy,
right?
Cranking stuff out. But they always call. Because they always take the time to sit and go, oh, what about that? What about this? You know? And Brian's a busy dude. Yeah. And he's one of my neighbors. And I always see him with his kids. I always see him with his family. And I always, I think he's a good representation of like a younger guy building a company and wanting to do things right. Him, Ben Somrak, he's always, an interesting one because he grew up here and he's kind of has that background. Who I always love to talk to is Gretchen down there at the Daily Dose.
Oh.
You know, Gretchen and Wazzy, Todd Wazinger. You know, I don't know. She's I can go in there and hang. I'll go in there and be like, I'm just getting a cup of coffee, and 2 hours later, yeah, we're still, we're just like doing a psychoanalysis, and it's like my little freaking, psychiatric area.
Yeah,
to go and get my buzz.
Awesome.
But, thanks for having me, man.
No, thanks for talking. That was a good one. Appreciate it a bunch.
Yeah, hopefully I didn't like jump all over the place and go memento style.
No, it was perfect. Thanks.
Excellent.